you're choosing bronzer, people have a real problem with finding the right shade. Now the idea with bronzer is that it makes you look healthy, like you have a little bit of sunshine in your face, and also it's good for contouring. Now if you're using a powder bronzer, which is what I'm going to be using on Charlotte now, you need to put a light dusting of translucent powder all over the skin before you start. And the reason you're doing this is because I only powdered down the central T-zone before, so around the side of her face, it's still slightly dewy. If I now use a powder bronzer, because it's darker than her skin tone and also it's a dry product, it's a powder, I'm going to get a very streaky effect, and I want the whole thing to be seamless and smooth. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is really, really important when you're using a powder bronzer, is just to put a very light dusting of powder all over the skin, and it'll just give a great, smooth and more velvety base for the bronzer. Now when you're choosing your bronzer colour, you don't want to go too dark. So if, for example, you're very fair, the best thing to do is to avoid the really reddy based and orangey based bronzers. They're better suited to someone with a darker skin tone. If you are very fair, look for the bronzing products that have almost a more tawny, peachy base to them, that don't have that strong, intense orange undertone. I'm going to use a bronzer by Prestige for Charlotte, and the reason I'm choosing the Prestige is because they have a great range for all different skin tones. They have a very large selection of foundations, powders and bronzers for almost every tone of skin, so they're great for that. Okay, I'm going to begin by just sculpting in. As you can see, I'm taking a little bit off on the back of my hand. That's a really good tip. Don't plough straight in with the product on the brush. You may have too much on. So just going to take a little bit of excess off. And I'm just going to start gently coming in onto the cheekbones. And I think a lot of people tend to use a very, very large brush for bronzing, and they tend to, dip into the bronzer and do more or less a uniform swipe all over the face. And what that does is, yes, it will make you look a little bit browner, but you're not giving any definition to the face. In a way, you're almost flattening your face out. So the nice way to do it is more to sculpt the cheeks, sculpt around the forehead, and almost recreate the look. If you have been on holiday and you have caught the sun, you tend to have highlights in your skin, and you tend to have you tend to catch it in certain places more than others. So we're recreating that look. So I'm coming round again, using it just to give definition and shape to the face as well as colour. If you make a mistake at this point and you've put too much on, the best thing to do is just to take a dry cotton wool disc and just literally buff over the skin. It'll just take off the top layer of colour, and you can reduce it like that. Okay, I'm coming up onto the temples now, and I want this whole thing to be seamless. No joins anywhere, no sort of strong lines. So it's a really good idea as well to bring the bronzer down onto the neck, particularly the centre of the neck, because this area tends to be a lot paler than the rest of your face, your chest, and even the rest of your neck. So just sort of bring that down. And again, if you're wearing something low cut and you're very, very pale here, be aware that, to tie the whole thing in, a light dusting there as well will really, really help. Okay, so I'm just continuing to give a good shape with the bronzer, a little bit around the edges there too. You can even do a little bit across the top of the nose there, which is, the sun tends to hit there naturally, so it's quite nice to emulate that effect. But it should be pretty even all the way across. I'm keeping the eyes natural as I did with the basics, but I've just added a little bit of natural gloss because I think it looks nice and fresh and quite pretty with the bronzer. So that's it.